everyone, and welcome back to the Great Owl Podcast. I'm your host, Kobi, and today I am happy to welcome to the channel a new guest host today, my wonderful friend, Hawk.
Hello.
And I've been meaning to have you on the channel for a goddamn long time, believe it or not. This has been planned since the first season.
That was a couple of years ago, I think.
Hey, in the past, we're here now, and we finally got here. We finally got you here. Oh, okay, so no ways to get into this other than just your history of it. So, you want to give a small bit about yourself before we get into the main discussions?
Oh god, I'm always so good at talking about myself. I like Star Wars, that's why I'm here. And I'm a average geek and gamer girl, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. And hey, sometimes that's all you just need to know about someone.
Yeah.
And hey, this is a podcast for fun at the end of the day, so
Yeah.
by all means. So, getting to this, really, it's actually a good thing that this waited until now, because we've had a trilogy of Star Wars films now. We can talk about we can talk about it in its entirety, really. So, let's kick off this podcast discussion with our brief histories of Star Wars. So, would you like to go first? How were you introduced to the saga?
How was I introduced to Star Wars? My dad showed me the fourth movie on, like, tape. You know, those big, thick tapes you used to put in the TV?
VHSs.
Yeah, VHSs. We had those. That was, like, years ago when I was really small. But that's kind of how I started. I just used to watch them with my dad, and it was the fourth, fifth, and sixth one that I watched first. And then it kind of just spiraled from there, I guess.
Yeah, and isn't that how it always starts? But yeah, that's if I'm honest, that's how it started for me too. I do have this vivid memory with my dad where he sat us all down in the front room, and our mum had gone somewhere, I guess, and we just spent 2 days, I think, watching episode 4, 5, and 6 back to back each night.
So good.
Well, so it was 3 days then.
They're so good.
Yeah, greatest dad ever.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember just watching the films with my dad and loving them, really, because they are just amazing films. And we subsequently did the same thing with the prequel films, and by that point I think we got them on DVD, because DVD was the big thing at the time.
Yeah, DVD was,
So-
it was, VHS and then DVD, and now you can download them, so why have any of those anymore?
Yeah, although it is a bit kind of bittersweet, because I have fond memories of holding the VHS box covers and enjoying just looking at the cover art of episodes 4 and 6. It was
broke
also
our tape.
nostalgic.
Oh,
Oh,
we
you
broke
did?
our tape for it. Yeah, we watched it so much we broke it.
Oh, how could you? How could you?
We got it in DVD after that, so.
Well, at least you got that.
Yes.
But yeah, so yeah, in all, really, when it comes down to it, really, we like, pretty much like everyone else, really. We grew up with the films when we were younger, and yeah, we love them. They're great films. They were entertaining, and they pushed our imaginations into great heights.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Now getting on to, I guess, the beginnings of the meat of our meal today. When we found out in 2012 that we were going to be getting a sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
what were your first thoughts on that?
I was excited because, I'd watched all the prequels and the 4, 5, and 6 and everything like that, so I was just like, oh, this could be interesting. So I kind of wondered what they were going to do with it, and at the time I'd been playing the MMO for Star Wars, like all the old Star Wars games, so my love for Star Wars was kind of growing more. So I think what interested me was what they were going to do with, like, the next 3 movies. So I thought, maybe they're going to try something new, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, I can actually remember the day they announced that the trilogy was coming, because it was, bit of context, my family were preparing to go somewhere, and I won't explain where because it's personal, but essentially we were planning to go out, and before we left the front door, my dad was going, "Hey guys, have you heard the news?" And he showed me this article on his phone, and it was like Disney announcing the sequel trilogy, and I thought, oh my god, they're doing it. God damn it, they're bloody doing it. And if I'm honest, I've always been a Doctor Who fan since I was very young, so I wasn't. I never grew up being a die-hard Star Wars fan, but I would say that I've definitely built an appreciation for the brand and and the films themselves for their use of fantasy storytelling and the characters, of course, and their influence in
Yeah.
pop culture. So at the time, I was very, oh wow, I'm excited, but I wasn't over the moon. Yes, finally, I've been waiting for this. But I'm not gonna lie, the anticipation definitely built as time went on, and then we get to 2015 now, and we finally get to the release of Episode 7.
Yeah.
So that really gets to this next bit. So we got Episode 7 after
Yep.
all these years,
Awesome.
all that wait, all the anticipation. So what were your thoughts on the film?
Oh gosh. I mean, when I first saw it, I really enjoyed it. Like it was a Star Wars movie. So because I watched it twice, I watched all the the sequels twice at the cinema, which is probably a bit excessive, but the first time I watched it, I was really impressed because I thought that everything they'd incorporated was really Star Warsy. But then when I went to go see it again, it was a bit cliche. I don't know if that's the right word. It seemed a bit too much of a mashup of 4 and 5 with a little bit of 6 in there. It was like the last 3 movies before the sequels kind of mashed into one, and there really wasn't much like progression for Star Wars lore wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much a similar ballpark for you, for me in your explanation of it, really. Because when I first saw the film, like everyone else, I was invested in the hype, and I really enjoyed the film. And I remember I remember distinctly being invested in the theory about who Snoke was at the time.
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
bringing up throughout the entire car journey home.
Who Snoke was. I had so many theories. I thought they were going to bring Star Wars: The Old Republic into the fold, because that's more my area for Star Wars. Like, that's where I've dedicated a lot of my life into like the lore of Star Wars: The Old Republic. But that would have been a bit too much for people, I think.
I guess, but a bit of a detour here. But who did you think Snoke was after you saw Force Awakens? What was your theory? I guess.
I had 2 theories, because I've read all the Star Wars books. I thought he was Plagueis at first, like Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
I thought that could have been great. He found the theory to live, forever. It was like an old decrepit form, but he still managed to live. The other theory was it was just a new villain. Like, I would have been interested in finding a new villain who'd risen up during the time where the Empire was the weakest. And then formed the New Order. Or I thought it could have been Valkorion from the Star Wars: The Old Republic era, which was way before Plagueis. But that might have been a bit too excessive. That was too much of the fangirl in me hoping that it was someone from the Old Republic era.
What could have been? But hey. So, yeah. For me, I enjoyed the film, but when I rewatched it multiple times, I sort of still enjoyed it, but I definitely noticed chinks in the armor, and I definitely kind of came to accept that, yeah, this is basically just A New Hope again.
Yeah, pretty
But-
much. Just a reskin.
In a way, you can sort of understand why, because I don't know if you know any of this context, but I did a bit of research and prep for this episode, and according to what we know at least, and again, just for anyone else out there who probably does know the full story, by all means, tell us in the comments or whatever. We're not professionals here; we're just here for fun. But generally, what happened was that, from what we understand, what happened is that Disney bought the rights, and they wanted to make that money back because it was a lot of money they spent to buy the rights.
Yeah.
So they basically fast tracked the script, and there are various scripts that they tried that vary from what we got, but and coupled in with the president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, wanting to go a certain route, which we'll sort of touch on later.
Yeah.
They basically tried to push it out, and they wanted people to be familiar with it being Star Wars, because people were still feeling quite burnt out from the prequels, but they wanted to recapture the interest but still make their money back. So they said, just do what's popular, just make the films that make it like the films that were popular, that made it great.
Yes.
And you can feel like they kind of just like fell into that trap of just retreading old ground. So we've now, instead of like doing, as you said, something original or something that progressed the universe. Oh, we need an empire again. Let's make the First Order. We need Luke to be not in the picture so we can make our protagonists the center focus.
Yeah.
Where's what happened to Luke now? We need Han Solo to be a smuggler again, even though his entire arc was becoming a better man. Oh, he broke up with Leia and now he's a smuggler again.
Yeah, it seems a bit of a backtrack story-wise. I mean, I'm kind of happy where Leia ended up as, because that's, to me, like, because she's a Force user. Well, she has the ability, but she's never wanted to rely on that because she's more of a diplomat than anything. So I kind of like the fact that she went more her mother's way. So she didn't want to rely on the Force.
You could argue, at least in Force Awakens, she's the most untouched.
Yeah.
But at the same time, even the fact that she never really got training, or at least they don't establish that, and then they confirm in Last Jedi that she didn't really. And then they try and retroactively say that, she did, but she gave up.
Yeah, the Last Jedi had some interesting pointers, but yeah, we'll continue that a bit later.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But, yeah, I will say there are good elements to Force Awakens, at least, because the core thing that I loved, the new thing they did introduce for The Force Awakens was the concept of a rogue stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Because that's something we had not seen before.
No.
And had they committed to that, there could have been something great here.
Could have
but
been
again,
rebellion with the stormtroopers.
You just get the sense that they either got cold feet or they wanted to be like a Marvel movie per se, or not that exactly, but they definitely wanted to be a fun movie.
Yeah.
Without the effort.
I think it was very kidified because Disney do that. Like they take a movie and they kind of just backtrack it a lot, so it's more family friendly to an extent. Like the whole the prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy could have been a lot darker because it felt like it could have been a lot darker, like story wise, plot wise. But because obviously they want to appeal to their audience, which is mostly kids nowadays and like families, they kind of wanted to dumb it down so it was a bit more superhero-y and the Star Wars sort of element. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, you can make that argument when you know that throughout this entire trilogy no one loses a limb.
Yeah, that hurt. I wanted a limb off, god damn it.
Yeah, and trying to keep up with Force Awakens, I feel like there was a lot of stuff they could have done.
Yeah.
And they just took the easy route. A lot of that kind of shows in the handling of the characters too. Again, other YouTubers have gone into the more in-depth problems with the film, but for me the big standouts are really just the handling of Finn and Rey. And to an extent Poe, because fun fact, Poe wasn't actually meant to live past his introduction in The Force Awakens.
Oh.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I do remember that. I'm happy they kept him on because personally I enjoyed Poe's character. He was a little like Han Solo in a way, but he had his own little flair to him, and the fact he had BB-8 as well, which was nice. And he was a good pilot, and I enjoyed the scenes he was in. But
it's just a shame they didn't utilize him too much.
Yeah, they did a few things that could have, made him more of a stronger character, but in some parts he just seemed a bit childish.
I just honestly think it would have all worked out had they just stuck together. If it was just this core trio.
Yeah.
Well, I say trio, but if they stuck together and we saw them all progress throughout the movie, it would have. It wouldn't have fixed the movie because there was many other problems with it. But there's a sense that they would have built characters together at least. And when you get into the next film and you split them up, then when you get them back together, so and it progresses to that point. Because, again, we'll get to this, but they just don't really get together until the final film. And by that point, who do we really know about these characters?
Nothing.
Yeah, especially poor Poe.
Oh gosh, poor Poe.
But yeah, for Finn, in regards to Finn, I feel like, again, he was set up with quite a dark backstory.
Yeah.
And he could have been very interesting because his backstory is that he was taken as a young child to be raised as a soldier, and when the time came for it, he refused. He didn't want to be like them.
Yeah.
But after that, you could replace him with almost any other random Joe. Like he just, it's just like he was like, imagine if he just walked on set and said, "Oh, I'm here to join the army. Oh, you're joining the First Order now. Oh, okay." That's cool. That could have been his backstory past his introduction, because the moment he rescues Poe, they're using him for funny scenes like, "Oh, keep calm, I am calm. No, I was talking to myself."
Yeah.
And then he's killing stormtroopers randomly, even though, by the movie's own logic, they're meant to be his brothers in arms, the people he spent years working and training alongside with.
Yeah. I'm. In regards to Finn, I think, because considering he was like struggling with the fact that he was a stormtrooper and he didn't want to kill, groups of people because the people he worked for said so. And then he, as you said, he went on to go kill his brothers and sisters in arms because some of those stormtroopers we find out were female. It's kind of just a bit like, oh, so you can't kill these innocent people, but you can kill the people that you've been trained with. It kind of seemed a bit unfair.
It's like you can't have your cake and eat it, mate.
Yeah,
you have to be consistent. Yeah, we need faceless villains to shoot. Oh, but we also want to tell this interesting backstory. I'll just combine them, but that doesn't work. Oh, forget it. Let's just enjoy the flashy lights. Yeah, that's it for Finn. Really, it's just that there's a lot of stuff they could have done.
Yeah.
And there's stuff they could have done that could have salvaged it. Again, going into episode 8, everyone kind of thought that his arc was going to be just that, trying to argue for the rights for the stormtroopers, like trying to convince the Republic that they are innocent in all this. They're just being used as pawns. But even then, they don't do much with that, and they sort of try to backtrack out of that in Rise of Skywalker. But again, get to that.
I mean, I think I can understand that. How do I word this? Finn wanted more of a revolt, I guess, with the stormtroopers in later on in the movies, but I can kind of understand if you're in the military and then you want a defect, not everyone's going to want a defect with you, because obviously some people still think that the Empire are right and what they're doing is righteous and that's what they should be doing. So I feel like they could have used more of a finding how stormtroopers were trained, because we don't really know much about that other than the comics and books and pages that fans have written just theorizing things. But it would have been nice to see how intense and hard the stormtrooper training is, because it is pretty intense and pretty violent.
Yeah, and I just feel like there was plenty of room to do that. You don't need to just put it in the supplement material, because let's face it, no one's going to read that. At least not. Only diehard fans will read that, and even then, the explanation won't exactly always be satisfying.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have preferred it if Finn was, as you said, in a more darker story, more gruff, more world-weary, and more burned by the First Order, because this is a guy who's meant to have been put through the ringer to become a soldier. So, add in him just choosing to defect, then meeting Rey and Poe, and if they stuck together, the entire first movie could have been about them trying to get him more open, get him to understand humanity more. Not exactly humanity, because he is human, but would have tried to make him more chilled and relaxed. And his arc throughout the entire trilogy could have been him, essentially trying to become more better, and also trying to subsequently say, I'm proof that the troopers, they can be good. You just need to give them a chance. Just let them, just beat the First Order. Win-win.
Defeat it from within.
Yeah. That concept alone is getting me excited and frustrated even more now. But now, the last point of discussion for Force Awakens, really just the Rey. So, what were your thoughts on Rey when you first saw the film?
I was when I first saw the trailer, I think it was the trailer, I was just like, oh, she's no one. This could be interesting. Because, we knew before we watched the prequels, we knew that Luke was special because his father was special. With Rey, it was kind of just like, oh, some stranger, some, scavenger could be this great hero if she trained and actually decided she wanted to do something good for herself. I liked her progression in The Force Awakens. She was a bit freaked out, which I can understand why. And then she kind of tried to take Han Solo as like an adoptive father sort of way. Like, everyone was just like, oh, she could be Han's kid because the way they seem very similar, they enjoy ships. They're good pilots, and Han seems to be almost naturally good at that. She had potential in The Force Awakens. I think that's all I could really, like, conclude for that. She had potential. And it could have been great. But...
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel sort of in a similar ballpark, but in a bit more of a negative light, because I actually enjoy her first few scenes where she doesn't really talk, because visually... Not like that. God damn it. Please. Let me finish. But yeah, but what the film does great in her first few scenes is it visually shows us her lifestyle without having to resort to exposition.
Yeah.
Because you see her daily life routine. You see what she has to endure every day.
Yeah.
And just from that alone, you can see, she's had a difficult upbringing, but she takes it day by day by day.
Yeah.
That alone kind of sets up, this is a character who's enjoyed a lot, but is still fighting for herself.
Yeah.
We don't know what yet, but she is.
She's fighting to live.
Much. But as the film progresses, though, every situation she gets into, she's just gradually getting through it with ease. From the fact that she's able to fly the Falcon with strategically good skills, and yet she admits that she's never left the planet or flown a spaceship before. And they say in supplement material that she trained on a device simulator or something. But again, supplement material, so not in the actual film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of gets a bit annoying after a while. And then when they say, have a blaster, and after a few shots, she's already killing stormtroopers with it. And then you get to the Force.
It's not hard to kill stormtroopers, is it really? When they can't shoot you, apparently.
But still, they could have made the effort to at least show that she still needs to learn how to aim, or at the very least had Han show how to shoot over a period of days. Because again, if you show the context a bit more, it makes it completely different. But the fact that they just say, "Here's a gun, learn how to aim," and then that's it.
Well, I think a lot of people because I know a lot of people who do love these movies, and I have had a few arguments with them about it. Like, I don't hate the movies. I gave them a chance. They just didn't really. But a lot of people would say, she was guided by the Force. Like, the Force helped her do this, and I was just like,
I'm sorry.
You can't use that for everything, though.
Number one, that's a stupid decision.
It is.
Number two, that's a lazy decision. It's a lazy excuse for bad writing.
It's very lazy screenwriting.
Yeah, and in some areas you can make an argument for the Force guiding our characters, like in the original trilogy and the prequels.
Yeah.
But there's a sense that each character is going on their own journey. You can't do that if your logic is the Force did it.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that a lot about, I know how to drive this car now. Oh wait, the Force helped me do it. Like, it doesn't. It seems very. You need training and that sort of progression to show that the characters have worked hard to get to a place of mastery within certain things.
Exactly,
Otherwise, it's just very boring.
It's a big difference between learning to drive your car and then independently driving it on the motorway for the first time. It's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So I can't really buy Rey having at least some simulator training, but being able to pull off those kind of moves on the Millennium Falcon, which she's never flown before.
Yeah, she was dodging in and out of like broken Star Destroyer pieces on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
again, look at the spectacle. Don't pay attention to the logic.
That's hard sometimes.
And then speaking of the scene with Han, when Han Solo, who's had the Falcon for 30 plus years at this point, and then she just bypasses the compressor, I guess, and Han never thought to do that before. It sounds like it's a small detail in the long run. It's a funny little gag in isolation. Yeah. But when you think about it from a character's point of view, she's doing too much. She's exhaling too much. Where's the learning curve? And I'm going to bring this up a lot as this podcast goes on. But the reason why Luke is such an adored character is because we can put ourselves in and understand his character. He started off as a very flawed character. He wanted stuff. He wanted to aspire to become stuff, but he wasn't good at it. Heck, the first fight he gets into in Star Wars, he gets knocked to the ground.
Yeah.
He first time he uses a lightsaber, he gets shot by the training droid.
Yeah, it
And
shows
he doesn't
the
even-
progression. Like, he's gone through the pain, like, the mistakes that he's made, and then he's learned from that and doing all his training, and then when he goes to Dagobah with Yoda, that's, like, his little training arc. He's done all that, and then he's, like, opened himself up to the Force so he can embrace it more and, like, help it guide him more, but it doesn't control his movements.
Yeah, he's learning the experience.
Yeah.
What is at this point in the movie? What do we know about Rey in terms of progression? She's already done a lot of this stuff with ease.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really get invested in the character when we know, subconsciously or not, that she's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And that's not even getting to the Force powers. The fact that she's able to learn the Force and control it,
I have
let
a
alone
few
with a
issues
lightsaber in
with
that
her
event.
Force powers, but that's like the rise of Skywalker, so I can't talk about that yet.
Yeah, well, again. We'll get to that. But yeah, okay, so I guess wrapping up the Force Awakens segment. Oh god, I forgot about this. I can't believe I forgot about this. But, what was your thoughts on the treatment of Han and Leia?
I felt like there could have been more. I mean, Han and Leia aren't the perfect couple, but I never really saw them breaking off because of what they went through and like how much they seemingly loved each other in the movies. But Han was done and dirty in the first movie. That was unfair. But
Yeah.
I can kind of see why it happened, because obviously Snoke wanted Kylo Ren to be turned more because he'd obviously realised that Kylo wasn't completely turned to the dark side. There was still some of the Jedi left in him. And I can understand why he killed Han Solo, because he thought he was, doing it to get more powerful. And it was a moment, even like Kylo seemed a little bit shocked by the fact that he'd actually managed to kill his father. And he didn't seem to have like a great relationship with his father in general. So I can kind of understand why Han was killed off first. Because it did help Kylo descend more into the dark side. But I feel like it was a little bit rushed at the same time.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like that's the worst crime The Force Awakens does, because the other areas, there's definitely stuff they could have fixed in the subsequent two movies, but this begins the trend that the sequel trilogy thought was the best idea in the world, apparently, where they just basically undo every victory that the original trilogy set out to do.
Yeah.
And with Han and Leia, from a story point of view, you can understand they needed to have a villain who was connected to the old OT cast, and you needed Kylo Ren to hate his parents, for lack of a better
Let's
word.
make the villain their kid.
Yeah, and I applaud that, because that's an interesting direction, because again, I don't know the expanded universe too well, but that's something they do explore with one of Han's kids.
Yeah.
So I can fully understand them wanting to use or hijack, for more better word, that idea, that concept. The problem with it is that, again, with everything that we went through with Han and the investment we built up over those three movies and the 30 plus years as fans, they should have executed it in a drastically different way. And this is actually something that I'll be touching upon whenever I get around to doing my rewrite of the sequel trilogy, which has been like almost 2 years in the making now. But it would have actually been, this is the only spoiler I'll give you for my draft, it would have been so much more simpler, I guess, and more easy if instead of having Han break off with Leia, they were still together, but their roles in the Resistance or like the New Republic were separating them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
let's just say Han was tasked by Leia to pretend to be a smuggler again. Maybe he went out as an undercover smuggler, or undercover agent really, and he just basically spent months on end trying to get intel on the First Order, because they need to discover what their goal was, what was going on with them, because they came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And that would have
been
explained why
interesting.
Han wasn't home all the time, why he hadn't seen Leia in ages.
Yeah.
And heck, his motivation could have been, yeah, I want to find my son too.
Yeah.
So when you get to the final event where he tries to save his son and he fails, it hits that much more home because we know that he's leaving behind a wife that he loves, and he did all this for his son, who kills him. Yeah. What we do get in the movie is just, he was a deadbeat dad wasn't a good father.
He wasn't a good
Great.
father. He wasn't a good husband.
Ugh, yeah. Yeah, I'm letting my anger get the best of me, but God damn it, Disney, that was one fucking stupid decision there. So I guess closing off with episode 7, I guess, again, for the grand scheme of it all, I can enjoy the film on its own, because really it's an okay space fantasy movie. It's an okay adventure film, you could say. But I think the big flaw of it is that as a Star Wars sequel, it just falls flat on its face.
Yeah, it was very basic. If you were
Yeah.
to like nitpick at it, it was a very basic Star Wars movie, and it wasn't really. It lived up to the hype, but it also didn't. Like aesthetically, it was beautiful to look at. Like all the animations, everything was so nice to see and like really pretty to look at. But if you kind of look into it more and look at the story, it was very disappointing.
But yeah. I guess moving on from there, we now get to the anthology films, and we'll just kind of bunch this all together with this one. So,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts on the anthology Star Wars films? Rogue One and
Oh, Rogue One. I loved Rogue
Rogue
One.
One, Solo.
I loved Rogue One because it felt the story writing was amazing. It felt like more of a military movie, which was nice to see in the Star Wars universe. And it kind of had this. I'm sorry, I love Rogue One, so I'll like continue to sing its praises. The
by all means,
the
do.
characters were amazing. They were all really unique, and they'd all, they have different experiences in life, and you could see that. And it was kind of nice that. What was her name? The main character's name. I've forgotten her
Jyn
name.
Erso?
Yeah, Jyn. She hadn't really, she didn't really like the Republic. She didn't really care about anyone but herself for that period of time. And then she had this mission to find her father again. And that kind of brought her into the Republic and then brought her with the group that she ends up with. And I thought that was a good character progression.
Yeah, it becomes a personal story.
Yeah, it went from she's not really that great. She only really cares about herself. She doesn't care about the bigger idea. To, oh wait, it's personal now. So maybe she does care now. But she also, it wasn't just personal for her, because even though her father does die, she realizes that she has to do this thing. She has to do, a suicide mission, which could end up with her dead, but she does it anyway because she knows it's for the greater good, which is an interesting and a good way for a character to progress within a story.
Yeah. Again, I kind of sort of similar in your ballpark. I loved Rogue One, and after several viewings, I can sort of still see the flaws in it because famously this movie was hit with a lot of reshoots, and you can see just from the trailers alone how different the movie is compared. But I still think it's the best, and I'm saying this genuinely here, the best Star Wars film they've made in their reign of Disney so far.
Yeah.
Because it's a very simple idea. How did the Death Star plans get captured? But it's also telling its personal story. How good or bad depends on your opinion, but it really does sell you the story and the cast and how they interact with each other. I found it very engaging and a lot of fun, and the fact that it was also taken a tad bit more seriously because it was a war movie, or at least it was emulating a war movie. It made it a lot more engaging and interesting and different compared to what we've gotten before.
Yeah. It was...
And I honestly... Yeah. Sorry.
Carry on.
And I just think K2SO and, what were their names again?
Cassian.
Cassian was fun, but, he had a very cool backstory. But it was, what were their names? I keep forgetting. Chariot and Blaze, I think. Just being off the top of my head, I think. But yeah, the stick guy and the gun guy.
The forces.
Yeah.
The force What? The Force is with me? No, not the Force is with me, guy.
I am one with the Force,
and the Force is with me. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they were the highlights for me in terms of the main cast. But everyone really played a part, and it was so much fun.
It was very unique in a way, and a unique way of approaching Star Wars. And I guess you kind of knew midway through the movie that everyone was gonna end up dead at some point. And I it felt more real, I guess, in the Star Wars sort of universe, because it's not Star Wars is a sci-fi fantasy movie, yes, but it's also meant to be really dark in a way, because you've got this dark, foreboding force power who's battling against the light, and then you've got the Imperials versus the Republic, and they're all so different, but there's meant to be a lot of loss in this sort of universe, and you don't really see that in the sequels.
Yeah, I think the great thing about Rogue One and the big flaw of the sequel trilogy is that it fails to understand the importance of character progression and pain, because as we said with Luke, he progresses and he learns, but he suffers because of it. With this film, again, I honestly went into this film not knowing, not even expecting. I mean, I had an idea that someone was going to die because they talked a lot about it being a war movie, and considering this was meant to be a very big departure from the norm of Star Wars, they were going to try and make us go, oh! But I did not know everyone was going to die.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. And that, again, as you said, that makes it that much more real.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. And the important thing with these kind of stories, even in the original films, the original trilogy, is that even though we had an idea that they're not going to die, putting them through the ringer just made it that much more real.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Rogue One really kind of took that to the next level, and it paid off. The reason here we are today, God knows how many years later, and people still say, yeah, Rogue One is the better film of the series so far. Why? Because it tried something different. And that's kind of what we wanted from the beginning.
Write a story. Like, the script was really good, the characters were really good, the progression throughout, like, just that one movie itself was really good. And
yeah.
I mean, also the call sign, like, Rogue One, their call sign's used in the older movies as well, which I enjoyed. Like, here's a little kudos to the Rogue One team that went down to try and get the plans for the Death Star. That's a nice little extra bit. They used a call sign from the older movies, and because you never hear Rogue One, you always hear Rogue 2. You never hear Rogue One.
Yeah, I think in Last Jedi, like giving Last Jedi a pass, they actually named one of the ships after one of the rebel generals in Rogue One, like the Vadis, I think.
Yeah.
That's a nice little nod to that, which is cool. But yeah, I love Rogue. Yeah, I love Rogue One. End of story. So, moving on from that, then, what were your thoughts on Solo afterwards?
I felt sorry for the Han Solo movie, because when it was first announced, everyone was boycotting it because we didn't get a Kenobi movie first, or a Kenobi series, and everyone was really excited about that. So I think, because apparently it didn't do that well, ratings-wise, because not many people went to go and see it when it first came out, because everyone was being, little spoiled children and stropping around because they didn't get a Kenobi movie first. But they should have given it a chance, because I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was too bad. I kind of want to see more, because they've incorporated Darth Maul into it now, because he's part of the criminal syndicate. He is the criminal syndicate now.
Crimson Dawn, is it?
Yeah, Crimson Dawn, with his group. And I think it wasn't a serious movie. It was more lighthearted than anything. It's a different contrast to Rogue One. But I think, it kind of showed Han Solo in a slightly more carefree light, in a way. And he was a romantic, in a way, because you can see that from when he sees his love again, whose name I've forgotten again. I'm not good with names.
Kira.
Yeah, there you go. But I enjoyed it, and I think it should have been given a chance, and they did well with what they were given, and the actor who played him wasn't that bad. Like, I mean, how can you live up to Harrison Ford? Like, really? Like, you can't. So he did well with what he was given, I think.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for whoever's going to have to replace him as Indiana Jones one day.
Ah, God, no, I don't think that's ever happening.
I hope not, but hey, you never know. But yeah, so you actually don't mind Solo?
No, I enjoyed it.
Okay. Okay, so...
I take it from your tone that you didn't.
No, I'm honestly surprised. And I'm glad, because I do love different opinions. But I will honestly say I was not a fan of it, because from behind the scenes, it was a cluster of a movie to begin with, because really, no one was really asking, in my opinion, for a Han Solo movie, because what's there really to explore other than the fact that how he became a smuggler? And you can't really... Yeah, because you can't really change much about him, because he's got to get to a point in where you see him in the opening with A New Hope, and his introduction really is all you need to know about him. He's a guy who looks out for himself and his own comrades. He doesn't really care about that. He doesn't care about the rebellion or the Republic, the grand picture. He's just about all for himself. And with this film, with Solo, I just feel like they kind of misunderstood it. Because, as you said, it's good to see him in this almost carefree sort of light and being a romantic. You can definitely see that and how he interacts with Leia in the originals. But the problem is they make him a full-on good guy. I mean, literally, the entire line of, for lack of a better word, the infamous line, "You are the good guy," really, it kind of rings hollow, because that's his arc in the original trilogy. So now you're just saying that, oh, he was always a good guy. Had we seen him be this more selfish, or, I mean, put it this way: if the film from the beginning showed him down on his luck, losing everything, and then there's glimmers of this good guy, this hopeless romantic, and then the film ends with him like, yeah, look out for myself, except just me and Chewie. Yeah. That would have been more better. But because again, I'm assuming Disney wanted to be more lighthearted. Yeah, they just made him the good guy from the beginning, and they had him crack jokes. Not all of it was bad, but I just feel like, in the grand scheme of it, the Solo movie didn't need to happen, because it really it just undoes his character in a way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and the unnecessary changing. I mean, the fact that they give him his last name because he's Solo.
Yeah, that did make me laugh.
Yeah, it's just, come on, just take the expanded universe route and just give him an ancient historical name. He came from a long line of Solos. I mean, heck, that would have been more interesting, because if you were going to do sequels, you could have explored his bloodline more. And I know the saying now is like, don't make it all about bloodlines. You can, as long as you tell an interesting story with it.
Yeah, I think if they were to make, because I don't know if they're going to continue with the movies, because it kind of didn't do that well ratings wise, and obviously that does take into account if they do another one. But I think they're trying to go more of the criminal syndicate way. So I don't know if he'll be the main rival for Darth Maul, which really doesn't sit right with me, because Darth Maul's main rival is not Han Solo, it is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Exactly, and you know that's not going to work, because from the established law of the universe at the time, the Jedi, at least from propaganda from the Empire, should be extinct.
Yes.
And Han didn't even believe in the Force when we meet him in Episode 4, so he can't meet Maul. And if they were going to set up an Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Maul movie down the line, which I assume was what they were implying with his scene in Solo, you can't do that, because in canon they've already faced and killed each other. Well, Obi-Wan killed him in Rebels.
Yep.
So... it doesn't really add up. It just feels like you guys did all this just for fan service.
I mean, I think they did. I mean, if they really wanted to do fan service, they would have given us a Kenobi thing by now, but they haven't yet. I think they're doing a series on that, though.
They are.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just... I feel like Solo, at the end of the day, was the perfect storm of the wrong place at the wrong time, because... from the beginning, it was a movie that some people would have been curious about, but not the majority, I think, were interested in seeing. The final product reeks of not really a cohesive movie, because they famously reshot half this movie along with Rogue One, and they famously fired the directors. They famously got an acting coach, I guess, to make the actor more Harrison Ford-esque.
Yeah.
And I'll give the actor this. He's okay. If I was given the chance to bring him back, I would. I would love to see him make the role his own in a way, I guess. But it all just reeks of this didn't need to be. and add in the fact that it was released only 5 months after the controversial Last Jedi, it just adds me reason to believe, yeah, why did you think this was not going to cause a stir and people weren't going to go and see it? Because you were, again, get to this bit, but you were blatantly attacking the fans, so what makes you think they weren't going to go and see this product?
I think maybe they used the Solo movie, they tried to like band-aid the backlash that happened with the Last Jedi, maybe? But they didn't expect it to have such a bad reaction, so they must have freaked out of it.
Yeah, I'll definitely freak them out, and I do feel like they with Solo they went in thinking, oh, this will be fine. It's got Star Wars in it, and when they saw the big backlash coming, they thought, oh shit, oh Bantha, we gotta do something with Episode 9, and we'll get to the backlash, but. And I forgot to do this episode. Thank God, or not thank God, because I actually don't like it. But just out of curiosity, what was your thoughts on L3 in the movie?
On
the droid, L3.
L3.
The right droid or whatever.
The female droid.
She's Lando's co-pilot or something.
I had like mixed views. Like, I enjoyed her. She was a bit of a breath of fresh air, but at the same time, she was very forced. I enjoyed it. Like, watching it, I enjoy her. I enjoy the character. She's an interesting character, and I like how she's been built up. Like, I like her chassis. That's how you call it. Yeah, I like this sort of robot design, because it's a bit more human-y. I don't know if that's the right... I know it feels more able combat-wise, but I feel like she was a bit too comic reliefy in certain aspects. But that's if I'm being really picky.
So you didn't mind her?
Yeah, I didn't mind her. She wasn't too bad.
Okay. And I definitely understand that, because I do agree. There's aspects of her that I do enjoy, her design being one of them, because she's definitely a more combat-ready droid, sort of similar to K2SO. And there's a sense that you could have gotten some cool action scenes out of her, and also the fact that she had quite a lot of, enthusiasm, I guess, at points. The main problem I have with her is really just that she didn't really feel necessary to the movie, and again, per Solo's problem, she was just an excuse to explain why the Falcon's called she in a throwaway line from Episode 5, because. Again, I don't really. The Falcon doesn't need a virtual personality, because we're not going to hear it speak. No. We don't even hear it speak at any point in the movies. So why would you introduce this bit? Yeah. So it's just an unnecessary addition, I think. And add in again, I'm all for this kind of a story where a robot tries to revolt, and there's precedence for that in any kind of Star Wars story that they try to tell. But the problem is that, again, I just think that it was the wrong place to do it. Also, ironically, add in the fact that, considering the current times and what's going on with trying to push feminism, it's just more amusing, really, just to say, oh, are you trying to be blatantly funny here, or are you just trying to tell a serious story?
Yeah, the feminism part, which kind of ties into The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, because it wasn't that bad in The Force Awakens, but I think because of everything that's been happening in the real world now, a lot of people are complaining that there aren't enough strong female characters, which kind of does annoy me a bit, because then they'll force them into the movies, but they'll make them so cliche, so annoyingly cliche that it kind of hurts to watch. I'm all for female empowerment, but do it naturally. Do it to a point where it feels proper and not cheesy
earned.
And gross and very annoying. It just, there's feminism, and then there's the Nazi feminists that kind of felt more agendas. Nazi feminist than anything.
Yeah, it's a matter of the character is what makes the story. This is jumping the gun a bit to the Last Jedi discussions and the Backlash discussions, but it's generally unknown that Kathleen Kennedy went into the role as president of Lucasfilm wanting to make the main character a female, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's something that everyone was expecting. Heck, we thought she was Luke's daughter for the longest time.
Yeah.
the problem that everyone had with her was that she didn't have an arc, or at least she didn't have a progression arc. In the grand scheme of things, you can yeah, in the grand scheme of things, you can sort of piece together this story she goes through, but it doesn't really feel consistent. And the fact that, again, she's so good at everything, you can't really relate to her on that level. Again, you just look at Luke, look at Han, look at Leia. Every one of them goes through an arc in the original trilogy. Some more so than others, but there's still a change within them.
Yeah.
What happens with Rey?
She becomes more
Better,
complaining,
and that's it.
She just kind of becomes more Rey. There's not much like to her.
Yeah, and Kathleen Kennedy, good for you, I guess, for trying to push for change, but you chose to put it in the brand that didn't need it.
Yeah,
because Star Wars has always had strong characters.
Yeah, they've always had, like, Star Wars throughout, like, the Star Wars. Like, you don't even have to be a great fan to know that Star Wars have had, like, really powerful female characters. They don't need the Force to be powerful. Like, Padme. Padme was a powerful character in her own right by being a senator. And then Leia...
Yeah, she was the fucking queen of Naboo, for God's sake.
She was queen of Naboo as well, like... And then Ahsoka, like, you know more about it in Clone Wars, like, she was an amazing character. All the Jedi on the Jedi Council and, like, the prequel movies, like, they were all strong within their right. Like, yeah, you don't really get to see them much in the movies, but if you watch the Clone Wars series, you get to know each of them a little bit more. And that, you show the conflict in them and how they got to where they are and the struggle and the progressions their characters went through. Like,
yeah.
There wasn't any of that in the sequel trilogy, which, for Rey anyway, like, there was a little for Leia. But then you had Rose as well, who came out of nowhere in The Last Jedi, which was unneeded. So...
okay, so yeah, just wrapping up this tiny bit, it's just... yeah, I feel like the anthology films had potential, but they just... For Solo's case, it was the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. Rogue One hit the mark, but you can fully understand why they chose to put certain things on the back burner. And it's a shame we're not going to get a Boba Fett or Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. In fact, we're going to get some form of them, maybe in The Mandalorian and the Kenobi series, of course, but you could argue it's almost for the better, really. Because, again, if they had gone on the way they had, things could have been much worse.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy that they haven't done a Boba Fett movie because, like, everything that surrounded him after he was so pitifully flung into the Sarlacc pit, basically, a little bit. Because some people thought he survived and then became Mandalorian and, you know, all that Mandalorian lore stuff, and some people think he died, but I'm kind of happy he might only just have a little segment in The Mandalorian, because apparently he might be in that.
Yeah, I think Boba Fett is the kind of character that is beneficial as a side character rather than a protagonist.
Yeah.
Because you sort of already know his backstory from the prequels, and I think there is room to explore him as a character, but again, the reason we fell in love with him in the first place in the original trilogy was that we didn't really know much about him, and that caused this great mystery.
Hunter. He was like the silent Mandalorian, which people were afraid of, which I
enjoyed.
Yeah,
that's what that was his purpose in the story, and that's all you really needed to know about him. Yeah. And that's kind of been his thing for the longest of times. There's a reason kids still dress up as him today. So, yeah, I think having him be a threat to the Mandalorian down the line in season 2 or whenever they do introduce him at some point, if they do at all, I think that's more beneficial for him, really. Kenobi, he definitely needs a story to be told, but it's equally good that it's going to be a series because we're going to get more time with him.
Yeah, because each of the episodes in The Mandalorian were like 20 to 40 minutes long, I think. So they were kind of like mini movies in themselves almost. Well, they were at least half an hour. But I'd rather have a series which is in-depth and good than a movie that is rushed and shit.
Yeah, so, give me substance over spectacle,
exactly.
Please.
Like, the Mandalorian series did that for me. Like, I'm a massive Mandalorian geek. I love the Mandalorians, everything about them. I want to be a Mandalorian, you know? If I were to live in another life, I'd be a Mandalorian. But I think that whole series did more for me than the last 3 sequel movies for Star Wars, and that kind of
yes. I fully agree. I just remember watching the first episode, and I did a little first impressions video on it, and I thought, already I love this, because the main Mandalorian is a cool character, but he also isn't good at everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's
and there's this mystery going on with the story.
Yeah, like, he's not fully kitted out in Beskar, which is the Mandalorian, like, metal, because that's rare. Like, in the time period he's in, it's rare, because Mandalorians went through a purge stage, and they almost went extinct, and their metal was taken, so it doesn't happen until, like, it's the second or third episode where he gets his full kit of Beskar. I'm just like, he earned that. He didn't just get it, he earned it.
And even in the small details, like the fact he can't ride whatever that alien horse thing is near the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Again, he's not good at everything, like we all are. So, but yeah, moving from that then. So now we get to the big thing, I guess, out of this discussion, really. Again, I guess the thing that everyone's been waiting for. What were your thoughts on The Last Jedi?
Where do I begin? Right, okay. So the first bit really annoyed me because I actually played, I think it was Battlefront 2, which is the Star Wars game. If I'm just... Yeah, Battlefront 2. In Battlefront 2, in the story that you can play, you get the plans to this really, really powerful Star Destroyer. That Star Destroyer was in the Last Jedi movie. That's the massive Star Destroyer that Poe takes down by himself. The plans for that were in the game. And everyone who watched that first bit were just like, hang on a second, how is he doing that so fast? Like, one little fighter, like, plane against this massive ship. And he just destroys the whole thing, basically. No one would know the fact that he already had the plans and he already knew the weak spots for that ship unless they played the game. And that kind of triggered something. I was a bit like, do they expect us to... Like, I'm a gamer, so I was fine with it in some respects. Because I'd already played it, so I already knew. But anyone who isn't a gamer and just watches the movies, they wouldn't have known that. Like, it kind of... From a person who hadn't played the game sort of view, it was a bit like, wait, how? This seems a bit overpowered.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I didn't even play the game.
But yeah, you only, the plans to that ship you find in the game and you send over in the game because you play as a defect, I think it's a Death Trooper. I need to go back on that. But yeah, you need... I
remember seeing the trailer.
But it just seemed a bit unnecessary, that first bit. And then you move over to Superman Leia. That, oh god. No person, no Sith, no Jedi survives being spaced without a helmet on.
Yeah.
Like, even then, it's a bit... But no.
Even in the Clone Wars, they wear masks to help them breathe in space.
Space is a thing, You can't breathe in space. You just... I was so disappointed when I saw that. I had to laugh. I laughed at that bit. And I went to go see it with, like, my friends after. Like, I saw it twice. I saw it the second time purely only for my friends' reactions. And one of my friends, he was in, like, uproar. He was so angry, but laughing at the same time. It was, oh, God. I just can't. The movie, aesthetically, again, it was nice to look at. But other than that, it was very disappointing. It was more like a comedy movie. A comedy disappointment movie.
Yeah, from my end, I thought I believe it or not, I've been thinking about how I'm going to word this for so long. Because if you're watching the previous episodes I've done, I kind of go on a bit of a tangent and I get my voice quite sore because I really didn't like Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Talking about it now, I'm going to try and be calm about it. But I went into that film with high expectations, ideas of what could go on. And I was really excited to see the return of Luke Skywalker, how everyone was going to develop and be pushed to the ringer. And I thought, how is this story going to play out? Seeing the movie, I remember distinctly walking out of the theatre, trying to tell myself, I kind of liked this and that. And then I turned to my brother and he said, what did you think before? And I wasn't really fussed about it. And then something just snapped in me. And I thought, yeah, you're right. No, I fucking hate it. I fucking hate what they did. Yeah, and the moment Luke chucked the lightsaber over his shoulder, I instantly thought, oh wait, what?
That hurt.
And
That hurt me inside.
and as it progressed, it was just like, oh no, maybe they could salvage it if it. Oh no, they can't.
No.
Wait. What are you doing?
It was. There was so like. For Kylo Ren especially, there were so many moments where his character could have progressed instead of being this angsty, whiny. In my opinion, he seemed like a teenage kid. Just a teenage kid in his angsty face. That's all he was to me at that point. And then he kind of had a little progression in this, and then after everything with Snoke and he wanted Rey to join him, it just was a massive step back. I was just like, what have you done? What? I don't understand. Like, the whole movie kind of forced Rey and Kylo more together to try and see if they could turn Kylo, or that's kind of what I thought. I was just like, oh, if Rey can kind of engage with Kylo more and like try and tap into his sensitive side, because he does have one, like, maybe she'll manage to turn him into a sort of grey Jedi, or, you know, he'll be able to defect, and that would be interesting, and that could, you know, or even, you know, Kylo could bring Rey over to the dark side. I would have been more interested in that, like, that would have been cool.
Exactly.
But no, none of that.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of the movie, there's problems all over the place. The fact that the opening text literally says the First Order reigns, you immediately think, wait, I thought the Republic were in charge.
Yeah.
So they've destroyed the Senate Capitol. There's not other factions that are being controlled by the Republic. Oh no, they're doing that because we need the Empire to be them.
Mm-hmm.
We just need them to be the Empire.
Yeah, that
and
hurt.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I just think I say that a lot, god damn it. But the movie is style over substance, and it feels like this was a movie made by a man who just wanted to make his movie, not a Star Wars movie. And from the logic of certain points, I mean, other YouTubers again have brought this up, and I recommend them at the end of the episode. But this one person describes it as this: that the bombers in the opening make no sense because it's established in the lore that they have bombers that are faster.
Yep.
But Ryan Johnson, the director of the movie, he wanted to pay homage to World War II movies bombers, so he intentionally designed them like that. And it's like, wait, so why don't you have those old bombers? Because you have them again in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, also the fact that the bombers in that, I mean, they dropped the bombs. I didn't think
in space.
In space. I didn't think gravity was a thing in space, unless we're very wrong.
Yeah.
Unless there was like something on the bombs that kind of caused them to move down, but it didn't look like that. They all just kind of dropped.
Yeah, and they don't establish it. So
Yeah,
that
that was really annoying, because I saw that at first. I was just like, okay, this really sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and add on that it's also focusing on a character that we've never met before, and then is killed off next. In a cool death, I'll admit. But then you find out, the entire point of this scene was to establish this one character so that this other character could feel bad.
Yeah,
and you find out this character, she's not even related to the entire big plot, she's just part of a side plot.
Well, I think Rose was more used as to try and create more of a teaser for a love triangle with Rey and Finn. Because like Rey and Finn's relationship is very close, and like I can understand why. Like, he was the first one to find her, and he pretty much took her off the planet. If you like his whole situation, he was the reason why she's no longer on. I've forgotten. Names have come blank to me today.
It's Jakku.
Jakku, there you go. So yeah, he kind of saved her from a life of just scavenging, and now she's, you know, she's a I quote Jedi. So he's given her this opportunity, so I can understand why their relationship's really strong and close, but I think trying to throw in just a random character to try and create a sort of love triangle rift was really unnecessary.
Yeah, it all just feels like, again, Ryan wanted to make a movie for himself.
Yeah.
And leave an impact because of himself. It doesn't feel like he did it to benefit the world. I mean, he says in subsequent interviews that, I don't think any scenes I did cut when necessary. Or not that exactly, but he basically says that I think I cut everything that was unnecessary, and everything you see in the movie is important to the plot. Even though he famously cut the scene where Luke mourns Han's death.
Yeah.
And he
Isn't that
and he also
important
cut
to the plot?
yeah, and he also cut. There was an alternative version of Leia and Luke's scene where she's generally broken down and crying, saying, "I know my son's gone," and he chose to replace it with a more, still sad but a bit more controlled, "I know my son's gone." It's like, what are you thinking?
What mother would do that? Like, she's a
Yeah.
general, yeah, but she still loves her son, so she's still got that, she's gonna have the sadness of losing her son to the dark side, pretty much. But apparently that's not a thing in this movie, emotion. Or, like, proper emotion at the right time.
Yeah, and I think going back to the bloody business of Snoke. And Kylo. I mean, as you said, he's pretty much just a whiny child in this movie.
Yeah.
And I do fail to understand why they thought it was a good idea to have Rey best him in the first movie. Because that easily takes away any fear factor or presence he had at the start of the movie. And again, you look at... I mean, what if Luke had done the same thing to Darth Vader? If he just picked up Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber and just cut his mask?
Yeah,
Darth
Vader,
to raise any
legendary
threat
Darth.
to him.
Beaten in one swing by a man who hardly knows how to use a lightsaber. That would
Exactly.
annoy me. But this, I think, going back to the last movie with Rey fighting Kylo, at the time I did kind of enjoy the little almost light bulb moment she has, where she realizes she can rely on the Force a bit more. But at the same time, from the slightly nerdy lore part of me, I'm just a bit but didn't Kylo train a lot with Snoke? And then he probably trained with the guards that, were stationed with him, the Praetorian guards who go through immense training to be where they are. But surely he'd have, he also trained with other Jedi before he turned into a Sith. So he'd already had, lightsaber training.
Yeah, people try to say that he was in an emotional state because he killed his father and still conflicted, but that doesn't take away the fact that he had years of experience. And again, no taking away the Force makes you do it.
Yeah.
Rey hasn't wielded a lightsaber before.
Yeah, she's never.
It just feels very unearned.
Yeah.
And it takes away the threat factor for Kylo.
Yeah, he seemed more like a tantrum child who was trying to swing a saber and then realised that Rey was somehow more powerful than him, so he got hurt.
Yeah, and the sad thing about it, they could have almost fixed this if they tried playing more into her Force powers. Because if you're going to establish that she's quite powerful in the Force, instead of having her be skilled with a lightsaber, just have her use the Force more. Every time he tries to swing at her, have her just use the Force to push it back, whether she's intentionally doing it or not.
She could have been more of a sage-like character, or in some of the words they call them Jedi consulars, so they rely more on their Force powers than they do on their lightsabers. Because to be a Force user, you don't be a Jedi or a Sith. You can't always master both. You either master one or the other, so you rely more on your Force powers than your lightsaber abilities. And I would have thought that she would have been more of a sage-like character who relied more on her Force powers, seeing as she was so naturally gifted. But she didn't. She's good at both, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, okay. I'm almost exhausted on that part of the discussion. So then we move on to Snoke.
Oh god.
So yeah, what were your thoughts on Snoke in the movie?
Pathetic. He was kind of seen. He was meant to be this big baddie who was really powerful, but he couldn't even see the fact that Kylo wanted to kill him, which is a bit worrying.
Shit. I mean, again, it all reeks of doing your own thing, not taking into context the bigger story that's being at play. Because Force Awakens sets him up as this emperor figure. Fair enough.
Yeah, he's trying to fit in the Emperor's shoes. He's meant to be somewhat terrifying if he's trying to take over what the Emperor had accomplished and kind of create his own force, which, but I just feel like you killed off Snoke.
is it because you wanted to make Kylo the big bad of 9? Sort of understand, but then you take into account the fact that you spent this entire movie and the last movie establishing that he's not a threat because of his how he acts, how he was beaten by the main character in the first movie, and also trying to humanize the main character, the villain. Sorry, understandable, but you need this big threat if you're going to be leading the First Order, and with Snoke, you just feel like there was a golden mine of opportunity they could have done if they'd done the Plagueis theory. So, do you want to explain what your theory was, what you thought of it, why you thought it was a good idea if it was the Plagueis theory?
Well, because Plagueis' whole like lore-wise, he's always wanted to live eternally. Like he wanted everlasting life. He wanted to be immortal. That would have been cool. Like this man you can't kill. Darth Plagueis. He was the master of Darth Sidious, and Plagueis wanted to stop himself from dying because he thought he could keep the people that he cared about from dying, which kind of ties into everything that happens with Anakin when Palpatine's trying to like lure him over to the dark side by saying he can stop people that he cares about from dying. But that would have been kind of interesting because the Emperor kind of aspired to be like Plagueis. If Sidious's master had come back from or like survived, it would have been like, oh, so the master he thought he'd killed had actually managed to survive and like outlive Sidious and become something more and kind of create more of his own legacy sort of thing, if that makes any sense. I might just be rambling here.
Oh no, it does. I think the Plagueis argument is the most natural and obvious choice to go for, and because really, when you think about it, from a story point of view, it makes so much sense, especially from the trilogy format. The original 2 trilogies were about the rise and fall of Palpatine. So how do you up the ante without bringing him back?
Yeah.
You introduce the threat that was greater than Palpatine, or something completely different that is a greater threat. In the case of Plagueis, bringing back him as the main threat, yeah, that's definitely going to raise the stakes, because this is the guy who trained the fucking Emperor. So how are we going to beat this guy? And he's got his own forces at work as well. So that alone already just sets up the greater story. And had they gone with that, Last Jedi could have been about, okay, who's this guy? What's his importance? Oh, he's this... He could have been... They could have added to it. They could have maybe said he was an ancient Jedi from the First Era or something, and they could have done little nuggets that could have set up stuff like for an Old Republic movie, which they might do down the line.
Only. I wish.
Yeah. There's endless stuff you could have explored with this concept, and it would have made so much more sense.
He could have just been a complete stranger. Like, I would have been fine with a complete stranger who just somehow got too powerful for his own good and managed to land a position as the head of the Order. Like, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, if they were hell bent on making the characters, oh, you can be anything.
Yeah, if you could be anything.
Hey, why not do that?
Why not take it that extra step?
Yeah, but no, they kill him off.
Yeah, I mean, with, like, this movie as well, you know the bit where they're running low on power when they're running away from the First Order? And they go to that Canto Bight town.
Yeah.
On that whole political statement thing. I thought that was very unneeded.
It's so unneeded. It's clearly trying to lean to the left, and it's just like, is this really relevant to the story you're telling of Star Wars? Did we spend... I mean, I can fully understand there's been points in the other Star Wars movies where they've done a detour, but you know what? It was actually making sense for the story. We spent the first act of Return of the Jedi at Jabba's place, but you know what? It wasn't a commentary on, I don't know, riches or whatever. It was It was basically a story about the heroes trying to rescue Han, and you got to see Luke's home again. You got to see how Luke had become more powerful. It's stuff that, while it does take a long time, it does have a purpose in the movie. With this, you can cut out entirely and just say, oh, we got the code breaker. Yeah. And it's all about convenience too. The fact that they find the guy, get locked in jail, and they find this guy who happens to be a good code breaker and can get them out.
And then he double crosses him to the Order, and then that like relates into the whole fight with Phasma. Speaking of Phasma, wasted potential. Her story, I've read her backstory. Her backstory is brutal. She has come from a brutal history. She is a warrior within her own right, and they kill her off twice, pretty much, in such pathetic ways.
Again, expanding on from the Stormtrooper aspect of The Force Awakens, you could have done Boba Fett times the best with Phasma if you understood her motivation, her backstory, and at the very least you utilised her more. Heck, going back to Force Awakens as well, she should have been the one that fought Finn during the first duel with his lightsaber, and that kind of sets up a rivalry.
Yeah, because like from when he first like kind of defects, she's the first one to be like, "Why do you have your helmet off?" So there's always like that. You can kind of tell when you first meet her. It's a bit like, oh, she's quite strict. Oh, she's quite straight cut. She's military through and through, and you should kind of be afraid of her, considering her size as well. She's huge. She's a huge, like, titanium, well, not titanium, chrome dome, there you go. She's a huge chrome dome, but she looks really powerful, and she seemed to have this presence that showed that she was more superior than the other stormtroopers, but she was there for a reason.
Yeah, and then it turns out in the end it was not. It was just for marketing purposes.
It hurt. She could have been an amazing female character. What do? No. They just kill her off really badly in both movies.
Yeah. Again, another example of a story aspect that they could have done greatly with, but then they just chucked it out the door. But they still want to have the recognition of, we've made strong female characters.
Yeah, yes, they could have made Phasma great, but they didn't, and it hurt.
Yeah. And now we get to the I'll save Luke to last, because that's really frustrating me, but we'll just get the other ones out the way then. So, Admiral Holdo. What are your thoughts on her?
Holdo, see, I didn't really mind.
Really?
Holdo. Yeah, I think she was kind of thrown in really randomly, though. She was kind of I feel like I should know this person, but I really don't. I enjoyed her character, but I don't like how she was kind of introduced and kind of thrown on us, because it seemed a bit random. But I did like what she did, like her self-sacrifice. I enjoyed that bit, oddly. Like, I thought it was aesthetically pleasing to look at, and I thought it was quite interesting. But I didn't know how that could work, really. Like, kind of jumping into hyperspeed, but not, and going through the ships. It didn't...
Yeah.
It didn't make sense, but it did at the same time.
Honestly, again, you kind of expected to me, I didn't like her.
Yeah.
Mostly, I don't like her because the role she has in the movie doesn't benefit the story as well. I mean, she's very annoying, really, because she takes up a role, really, that should have gone to Admiral Akbar, a character that we're already familiar with.
He was killed off on the sidelines.
Yeah, he's killed unceremoniously in the background.
Everyone was so annoyed about that. Our favourite character, everyone's favourite character, just killed off randomly in the sidelines.
Yeah, I think, honestly, the crazy more thing is I didn't really care much to him as a character beforehand, but when you take into account his involvement in the saga in history as a character, it would make more sense to give prominent screen time to a character that's already established. To introduce this new character, and then she's just there for conflict because you need tension in your movie, it doesn't really sell it. And then to try and do a wide and say, she's a good guy, guys, she's going to save the world, save the day, it's like, you spent the first half of the movie making us hate her. And mostly I don't like it because, I've been going off my head at the moment, but I've got my notes right in front of me, so I'll just read them out for this one here. She takes up a role that really should have gone to Akbar, and she refuses to tell Poe the plan. And she should have, because I think had the movie been about her and Poe working together, trying to figure out what was going on, because they established that she's worried about some mole in the Resistance. Possibly that's why she doesn't tell everyone the plan outright. But again, even Poe takes every chance to say, "What's the plan? What are we doing?" And she just doesn't really tell him anything. She spouts philosophical moments at points try and say, keep calm, we're all good. She's making it worse because she's basically making everyone lose hope in herself to make her think that she's not really ready for the job she's given. And it just... Her actions alone destroy Stark... Poe's actions alone destroying Starkiller Base set up that he's on their side. So she has no reason not to distrust him. The fact that she also takes... the fact she has what was it? I'm just trying to read them here, so I'm getting lost in my words. But, what was it? I've lost it. But essentially, she basically takes pot shots at him. She basically says, oh, you're this, you're that. And she's antagonising him, essentially. And she doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Because what does she think's going to happen? Poe should have gone in trouble for what he did in the actions of blowing up the ship and losing lives.
Yeah.
But his heart's clearly in the right place, and she should have realised that. But to have her just basically antagonise him and say, oh, you get off my bridge, you're just causing trouble... Don't you think the most logical thing as an admiral would be to keep him close, make sure he doesn't do anything reckless, which he does end up doing?
I see. I'm like 50-50 on that, because I can understand from a military point of view why he was going to get kicked off the grid, because, like, the bridge, there you go, words, because he was demoted in a way before Leia went into a superhero coma, but... In a way, it was kind of more of a punishing him because he tried to be high and mighty and try and rise above like his position within the Resistance by saying he can do everything. And
that's not the thing, though. I personally think that Poe was the kind of character that could not stand sitting down on the sidelines. Because if he saw a chance to help the rebellion at the cost of himself, he would do it. So that's kind of what I took away from it. Which is why I think, again, if Phasma was a more competently written character, or from in-universe point of view, if she was a competent character or admiral, she would have recognised that and realised, I've got to keep this guy close. Maybe he can help me, unintentionally or not. But to basically just dismiss him, again, I just feel like it causes unnecessary drama, and in the end, it doesn't really benefit everyone because it just wastes our time. Because how much stuff we could have done spending that time on stuff with Luke, on stuff with Finn, if he was doing the Stormtrooper Rebellion subplot instead of the bloody Canto Bight stuff.
Canto Bight, I love it.
Yeah, I just feel like it's an add-on to the waste of time that they do with this film, and getting to the bloody star hyperspace jump thing, whatever they want to call it.
Hyperjump.
I will give them this. It's a hyperjump. I can give them this. It's a visually pleasing thing to look at. But again, you take into the rules of the world. Why have they not utilised this as a weapon before?
Yeah.
It's just it breaks the world. So now Luke they should have just put a droid in the ship and just shot it at the Death Star. End of trilogy.
That's just folks.
yeah. These are things you kind of have to look out for when you're telling these stories that are connected to existing franchises. You can't break the universe for the sake of I want to tell my story. No, you have to take into account what's come before and figure out a way to make it work without breaking the law. But no, Rian Johnson wanted to do his movie, make it his baby or whatever, and he got the film he wanted at least. But I'm sorry, I just don't like what he did.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, throughout like the entire trilogy, though, they kind of do things that break law from the past movies, or they kind of introduce things, and it's a bit like, wait, so if a Jedi more powerful than Rey can't like heal or force heal, then what? Or could have force healed? Why didn't they do it in I don't know, Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon was stabbed?
Exactly.
Like he could have been saved. Just a little force heal, you're good. Just swap a bit of your life source and you're good. But no.
Yeah, and then and again. In some form, that could have worked too, jumping a bit more forward to Rise of Skywalker here.
Yeah.
But again, we know force healing to an extent exists in the expanded universe. Fair.
Yeah.
But when you're incorporating it into this universe, if you were going to use it, you should have trailed it back more. You should have made it so that she can heal maybe minor wounds. Even if it was a powerful Jedi, they should have only been able to heal minor wounds. But the fact that she's able to bring someone back from the dead, or in more Kylo's case, he brings Rey back from the dead, that just it takes away the stakes. So now, this character's died. Oh, bring them back with the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot of... We're doing a lot of here.
It's just frustrating.
It is. And I guess closing this all off, because I'm sure there's other stuff to talk about that's false with the movie. I mean, another highlight for me being Hux, how he's sort of a bit of an intimidating villain in the first film, and then they just relegate him to a joke in this one.
Yeah, that I thought Hux had potential. Like I enjoyed the actor who plays him. He's a good actor, and I enjoy his acting. And in the first one, he seemed more of a suck up in a way. Like he thought he was commanding, and he even wanted to stand up to Kylo Ren, which not many people do. But
yeah,
he then kind of divulges into this stupid joke.
Yeah, the problem is that, as you said, he's sort of stuck. He's always trying to one up Kylo in a lot of scenes in the first film.
Because he knows he's a child still. He knows he's an immature child, and Hux knows that he's got more experience in certain things than Kylo does. Yet Kylo has more power in certain ways than Hux does.
Yeah, there's a sense that had the trilogy progressed in a bit of a more serious light, even though we know he's clearly being controlled by Snoke, there's a sense that he could have become a Tarkin-esque character, where he clearly had a threat to him. I mean, heck, they sort of tried to lean in that with the unproduced script for Episode 9, Duel of the Fates. Have you read about that one yet?
I've read a little bit about it. I didn't want to read too much because everything hurt because they went one way and they should have gone the other way.
Yeah. But yeah, they should have gone that way. But again, Last Jedi just relegates him to, we're using for the butt of jokes. And great, you can get your audience to laugh for the first viewing, maybe. But in the grand scheme of things, what does this mean for the universe? Why is it that the First Order will take him seriously now when every chance every scene he's in, he's getting thrown to the side, he's not being taken seriously? And it got so bad that you can't deny this, they had to bring in another general, General Pride, in The Rise of Skywalker, just so they could have an authoritative figure in the First Order.
Yeah.
Because we laughed at Hux so much before, we can't take him seriously anymore.
We need someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that felt a bit... It was unfair.
Unnecessary.
It was unfair and unnecessary to Hux's character.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I think is his name Dominic Gleeson, the actor. I mostly know him from Harry Potter, I think. Yeah, it's Harry Potter.
Okay.
And he was in that one movie with Oscar Isaac, Machine or something.
Yeah, Dominic Hall Gleeson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. I remember when they announced his casting, and a lot of people thought he was going to be Luke's son. I actually would have liked that, believe it or not.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, but no. I feel so sorry for him, and for the majority of the cast in this series too, and we'll get to that in the final part.
I mean, the Last Jedi did a lot of things, though, especially with the fight between Kylo Ren and the Praetorian Guard that were around. All those cool fancy weapons and fancy armor did nothing.
Yeah, and from a behind the scenes aspect, it's also quite bad because, again, from a first viewing, visually it's quite pleasing and it's cool to see people in a different style of sword fighting. But then you take into account that behind the scenes they're clearly waiting for their cues because the actors aren't that slow or quite slow, and they disappear weapons and shots because they realize the character can easily stab Rey there, but we can't have her die, so just edit it out in post.
There should have been more loss in that because, again, like going back to the nerdy side, like Praetorian Guards, they go through so much training because they're tasked to protect the Emperor. Like, you have to protect the Emperor, the most powerful person in the universe. Like, how are you meant to do that? They have to protect the most powerful being in the universe. They have to go through training, and then after the training, like, the last group of them who have survived the training then have to kill themselves in a way. They have to fight till there's one left. So each of the Praetorian Guards, again, earn their way to protecting the Emperor, or in this case, Snoke. And then for them to be so easily defeated by a child who doesn't know how to use a lightsaber properly, yet just has, the Force tells her what to do, and I can understand Kylo, how he managed to defeat them, but Rey should have lost a limb.
Yeah, and keep in mind, she's meant to be 19 years old in this movie.
Exactly! She's younger than me! Like, it just... How? No, a teenager who's managing to fight off these really powerful Praetorian guards? No, just doesn't sit right with me again.
No. So yeah, let's put Last Jedi to rest with the last bit of discussion. Luke Skywalker. So yeah, what was your thoughts on how they handled Luke in this film?
So force projection against the across the galaxy is a thing that I didn't know about. Luke, I felt like they tried to redeem Luke, but it didn't work. I felt like they tried to make him seem like a force to be reckoned with, but again, it just didn't really. I don't really know how to put it into words. It just didn't sit right, the entire segment with Luke. Again.
Yeah, I feel like, again, going back to Rian Johnson, here's how what I think happened. When they made Force Awakens, Kathleen Kennedy was clearly on a leash. She was being told, you've got to do certain things to make sure this appeals to Star Wars fans because we need to get everyone in on the film. But after the success that happened, they clearly said, okay, we've got everyone in, now you can do your thing. And she gave Rian Johnson full creative control. And we know this because he tells us so in multiple interviews. And I mean, the fact that they immediately went to J.J. Abrams afterwards and said, okay, you got to do this, and they didn't give him free creative control for Episode 9.
Yeah.
Kind of says a lot, really. And I feel like what happened was that Rian Johnson was given free rein to do whatever he wanted, regardless, and they at least what everyone is saying, according to a lot of the people that I listened to who discussed the more in-depth problems behind the sequel trilogy, behind the scenes. But allegedly, the reason why she allowed this to happen was because Rian Johnson shared her ideologies about, pro-women feminism and all that jazz, which I'm not going to bring up because, again, that's not the point of this discussion. But Rian Johnson clearly just wanted to make something for himself. Because he even says in multiple interviews, we shouldn't think about what the fans want, but what we want. And there's this very sad interview where Mark Hamill explains this story to the audience, and Rian Johnson's right next to him, and the moment he finishes, we got to think what we want, not for the fans. Everyone starts clapping, and you can see in Mark's face, he's like, oh, so you guys don't care? I'm like, oh, god damn it. And so I guess what I'm getting to is that Rian Johnson, regardless of if he is a fan or not, he just clearly didn't understand Luke. And when you think from a story point of view where Luke would be after the events of Return of the Jedi, he should have been the wise Jedi Master.
Yeah.
That's the most obvious thing that you should have done, and that's the one thing that everyone was banking on the moment they announced the sequel trilogy. Where are our heroes 30 years on, and what have they become? To basically say he gave up, and Luke Skywalker, who's the most optimistic, hopeful, and progressive character in the series, the one that everyone aspired to be and could relate to from the beginning, because we all love Han Solo, we all love Princess Leia, but let's face it, Luke was the person we were when we were younger.
Yeah.
And to basically say, oh, he gave up and tried to kill his nephew because of a bad dream or a bad vision.
Yeah, that didn't sit right with a lot of people, because it was just like, really? Luke would, just because of a bad dream?
Yeah. And then to give up and not even go after the First Order or try to console his sister or do anything to help them in the fight for God knows how many years until Rey comes along. And even then he doesn't help.
Yeah.
And then add on that Rey is the one who's meant to be taught by Luke. But no, they have Rey teach herself, and they have her basically say, you need to do something. She's basically reprimanding him.
Yeah.
It should be the other way around. Rey should be the one learning all this stuff, taking into account everything. But no, they wanted her to be an idol, so she's good at everything.
What she is, it feels like she's just an idol. And a poster girl. There you go.
Yeah, and it really hurt Luke, and that's the worst thing for me that they did with this trilogy. To basically destroy the characters that we loved for the sake of we need to make our characters better. No, you do that by making your characters interesting and relatable. Rey is too perfect.
Well. Like, it hurts the actors. Like, Mark Hamill clearly wasn't, like, happy with how his character ended up being, and you could see it in like the interviews, and just he didn't like the movies, like he didn't enjoy them, and I think because he said he didn't really enjoy them as much, he kind of got punished for that. So his character was broken down. So all that effort he'd put in though so many years ago to make Luke an icon in Star Wars just ripped out in like one movie.
Yeah, Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. You can't take that away from him because he was the original. He's always gonna be Luke Skywalker. And there's this great quote I had from him on a talk show where he and I quote him here. He says, "It's just so wonderful to be associated with something that makes people happy."
Yeah.
That's what Luke Skywalker was to Mark, and that's what he's been to everyone for 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So to have this movie then come out and say, "Oh, he gave up. Why? Because of a bad dream, and he's responsible for all these problems, and he still didn't help." No wonder people were bloody pissed. And I'm sorry, I fully understand there's people out there who will say it was a good thing, it was an interesting thing. I'm sorry, there's so much more better stuff you could have done with Luke. And if you were going to have him stay on the island, heck, make it a Jedi thing. Make it so that he was doing research, prepping for the arrival of Rey or something. Or heck, maybe it's so that he wasn't expecting Rey, but her arrival sets in motion events for him to say, okay, now it's time for me to take action.
He could have been in a meditative state as well, but no, he's just drinking blue milk.
Yeah. And I will say this, sorry, just so people do get it. We are aware that, well, at least I'm aware, that George Lucas, when he was writing treatments for the sequel trilogy, he did intend for Luke to be in exile.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the trilogy, and he did intend to be killed off by the end of the trilogy in Episode 9.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there's precedent for that. So in a way, this story was always in some form going to happen.
Yeah.
But you can tell George Lucas would have not done this. He would have not made Luke give up. He would have not made Luke try to kill his nephew in his sleep. He would have not done anything that would have made Luke Skywalker give up. Because Luke would have lost hope in some form, but a Jedi does not give up, as Mark Hamill says. He would have taken time to prepare for the next event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
George Lucas can't complain because he signed his rights over to Disney. Probably the worst mistake he ever did.
Oh yeah, again, diving a bit more into current rumours from other big YouTube sources at the moment. So again, I'll reference this later. But allegedly, someone has leaked that George Lucas, after he saw the cut of Last Jedi, he turned to everyone, including Bob Iger, and said, "What have I done?"
What have I done? Exactly. Yes, he should be saying that. What has he done?
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm already starting to feel so throated from all my rambling. Sorry, but I guess wrapping the Last Jedi discussion up. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I forgot to add this bit. I had this entire quote set up for raising the stakes, but I'll just say this now. But in relation to why it's good to put your characters through the ringer. Again, the characters singling out Rey here. This is the middle chapter for her trilogy. Yeah. She should be pushed to the limit with this film. Yeah. Would you say she goes through much in Last Jedi?
No, not really. I mean, I think there should have been more loss in The Last Jedi. For example, when in last bits of The Last Jedi, just before Luke turns up, or I put in quote marks, turns up, he's just a false projection. And Finn's ready to sacrifice himself. Finn should have died. I hands on down, like I felt like Finn should have died. That could have been an interesting loss. Like that, I wanted to see how Rey could have coped with an actual loss. Like I know Han Solo was a bit of a loss to her. Like they had a close bond very quickly, but Finn would have been more impactful to her character, and she may have actually been able to kind of tamper with the dark side a little bit and see if she'd fallen, or it could have pushed her character to potentially falling to the dark side, so there was more threat to her personality and to her, like, what she stood for in a way, because Finn died, but he didn't, because Rose saved him.
Yeah, another convenient moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just outside of some cuts from her fight and bit of the trauma, I guess, from finding out she's a nobody. That's fair. But then you follow up in the next scene with her, and she's literally in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon shooting at all the other ships, which she gets all, by the way, because again, she's such a good shot.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Whoa, I like this." It's like, wait, I thought you were meant to be emotionally scarred at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't face any challenges, and again, factoring on what we said earlier, she's too good at everything, and they wanted, again, it's all because they want to make her an idol, they wanted to make her a good symbol for girls or whatever. That doesn't make a good character. And showing that as an example here, why it's important that you have to make characters struggle. You look at Gandalf for an example, taking away the fact that he comes back in the Two Towers. When we meet Gandalf, he's this very powerful, very sage and wise man, this wizard who knows a lot about everything.
Yeah.
So we instantly trust him and his judgment. When the journey begins with the Fellowship, he's essentially the leader, and he leads the party. There's a sense of direction of where we're going.
Yeah.
So when it gets to the point where we lose him in Moria, and we've lost our wizard.
Like the beacon.
The stakes
who
are
was,
raised.
like, to show the way, and then they split off, and it's just like, oh, this could be interesting.
Yeah, it sets the groundwork for, we've lost our mentor, we've lost our leader, now what are we going to do? We have to continue the mission. The stakes are highly raised because now they've lost their one thing they can count on as a great defense.
Yeah.
And in the case of Star Wars, we should have gotten more consequences for the characters. We should have had Rey lose a limb or find out something that would have pushed her on a more of emotional level. We should have seen her try to train but fail. We should have seen Finn more of a broken character but learn to become more human. Heck, with Poe at least, we should have seen more of him outside of just cocky pilot. I don't know. I feel like there was endless areas they could have pushed the characters into more interesting directions and made it feel earned. Mm-hmm. And that's just talking about the sequel trilogy characters. But it just doesn't feel like they didn't bother to try. And with the so I'm getting exhausted at this point, so we'll just move on. I do not like I do not like Last Jedi, and I don't know how I'm going to react to it as the years go on, but I do find it hard to believe I'm going to look back on it and think, it wasn't so bad, because I can appreciate the prequels despite their flaws, despite their problems, but there was at least a story set, planned out, and the characters had progression in them. You understood how they got to certain points, and you understood what the story was about.
And there was good meme content too. That's what the prequels are. Memes. But no, I mean, I didn't enjoy the prequels, but I enjoyed them at the same time. Like, they were quite weak, but at the same time they did have that plot, and they did have good characters in them. And that is kind of what drove everything. But with the sequels, it's not really there, really.
Getting to the next segment, the backlash of it. We sort of already touched upon this earlier. It's like you don't know too much about the behind the scenes stuff that happened after the film was released, do you?
Not too much, but I do know that a lot of Kylo Ren's fangirls, Adam Driver, threatened his wife.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, apparently a lot of them were very infatuated with Adam Driver, and his family got involved, and people found out who his wife was and everything like that, which he tried his best to keep away from the media. So that's only really what I know.
Good God.
God, I love Star Wars fangirls. They're terrifying.
Yeah. Essentially what happened, for the casual viewer who probably doesn't even know, even though I'd be surprised if you didn't know, but after the release of Last Jedi, of course, there was a lot of backlash from fans, especially fans who were more invested in the grand story of Star Wars and the characters. And essentially what happened was that Lucasfilm, the employees, a lot of the supporters of Lucasfilm and other content creators, and even the media itself, went out of their way to basically demonize the fans and everyone who criticized the film, saying it was a masterpiece and the sequel trilogy was the best thing since sliced bread. And this went on for so many months. And it caused a lot of YouTubers to become big because they made their voices known and they were able to make a platform out of this. Examples in case being channels like Geeks and Gamers. And it really just shows that, one thing, good things can come out of bad things, which is good. But it really just shows that how much this idea of trying to push be progressive hijacked the media, and it didn't focus on why the films were bad. The films were bad. They weren't great films. And again, diving into a bit more of a current rumors at the time, there was actually the host of Geeks and Gamers, I think his name's Jeremy. He actually had a podcast discussion with a Hollywood producer, good guy apparently, and the guy basically says, I can't confirm who this is or deeper details, but apparently a lot of professional directors and writers, they don't like The Last Jedi. They say it's a terrible script, but they can't come out and say it because the Hollywood bubble at the time, the Hollywood norm at the moment is that it is good. That they need to be progressive with the times. So if they say it, they're going to be discarded. So yeah, just...
I mean, I did read some articles on that, because obviously everyone's got their own opinion about the movies, and a lot of the articles were saying that, like, the average Star Wars fan just didn't like change. So they didn't like the new movies, and I was just like, I wanted change. This wasn't the change I wanted, but I like change.
Yeah.
So I think people
articles.
just, they get a bit... I can understand having your own opinions about movies, it's fine, just don't take it to such an extent where you make other people feel bad about their own opinions because they didn't enjoy the movie.
Yeah, because that's the whole thing that George was against. He wanted to bring people together. That's the whole point of Star Wars.
Yeah.
The story of family and bringing people together. The Lucasfilm, at least the people who were employed, and I'm assuming are still employed there, and all the media that kind of took their support in saying it was a great film and attacked the fans, those are the people that are in the wrong. And I'm honestly just hopeful that the people like us who are clearly aware that, yeah, we didn't like what they did, and we're just voicing our opinions in honesty and not attacking people. Yeah. Hopefully, our only hope really is that in the years to come, either they're going to realise this, and they sort of are currently, but they're still not there. But hopefully, as the years go on, people will be able to realise what went on, and the next generation of filmmakers will be able to take into account what the current filmmakers of this generation fucked up doing, and they'll be able to do better stories with it. But it really is just such a shame, because again, we have all these existing IPs right now who have great potential to tell great stories and become timeless classics. The sequel trilogy just does feel like it fell into the trap of trying to be the glory, but without all the effort.
Yeah. Basic isn't always good. Basic can be good in some ways, but not always.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess getting to the last two topics, the prime one, of course, being The Rise of Skywalker. So, what were your thoughts on this film?
It started off okay-ish. It kind of just descended into madness. I still don't. I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I still don't understand what happened. Like, it all happened so quickly.
Yeah.
Rey gets more powerful, and suddenly has a thing with Kylo Ren. That was interesting. Kind of threw me off a bit. And then we find out that Snoke was just a pawn, and it was the Emperor, I quote, all along, and that Rey was Sidious's granddaughter. Which just didn't make any sense to me. Really?
No.
But it just descended into madness, and I don't understand where the plot went, if there was any at all. It just, I mean, I looked up a bit more about what happened with how the Emperor apparently survived, and it's a bit annoying.
Yeah, it turns out he's a clone, isn't he?
Well, yeah, the other Emperor that we see is like a clone of the Emperor, but apparently when the Emperor was killed by Luke, while falling, he reflected that he had prepared himself for a scenario such as this, unlike his former master Plagueis, so he called upon the power of the dark side to leave his body and thrust his consciousness far, far away to a cloned body created by the Sith Eternal on the Sith world of Exegol. And that is how he survived. Yeah, I'm reading this off a wiki, by the way, because I looked it up. I was just like, I need to remember how he actually did this. So apparently the Emperor's, like, pure consciousness is in this clone, and he managed to survive him from getting killed by Luke.
So what's stopping him from doing it again? How do we know he didn't do the same thing at the end of this film?
Yeah, so apparently he'd managed to move his consciousness, which again is like it is something you can do, but because the dark side is a very mysterious kind of more necromancy sort of area of the Force, and yes, in the Old Republic, there were Darths who like moved their consciousness from one body into another, but it was a very long ritual. It's not like one where you could do where you're falling down the middle of the Death Star, or when you're just about to be killed. Like, you can't do it like that. And they mention nothing of this when in like the old movies. So how are we meant to know? You just kind of appeared there, and everyone was like, "What?"
And add on a bit to that, they don't even explain how he came back in the movie.
No, they don't.
It's just put away in a one throwaway line in the text crawl.
Yeah.
And add on to that, to make this current to everyone, the message that they say is very important in the opening crawl about his big return.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even in the movie as well. It's just in a Fortnite campaign in the game Fortnite or something.
Oh Lord, how far Star Wars has gone.
Yeah, it's like great job, guys. You really are making a good job of this brand, aren't you?
I mean, like, with the whole Emperor and things coming back, like, all those little minions on Exegol, they're part of a cult that were around in the Galactic Empire sort of era, so, like, during the New Republic. They aren't mentioned, they're just there, but there is lore behind them. You just don't know about it. You just know that they're these shadowy things that seem to appear in the hundreds, because there were loads of them, who have made this secret fleet that can somehow survive coming out of, like, under a planet.
And they've spent years there, apparently, even though they've...
Yeah.
At least from what it looks like, Exeter isn't exactly the kind of place you'd go for a holiday.
No, but apparently they've been plotting and planning and waiting for Kylo Ren to become an actual true Sith, and they waited for decades and decades while they created the secret fleet.
And it turns out they wanted Rey all along.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess getting down to it all, the return of Palpatine was the worst thing they could have done, really. Because add on all the problems with Rise of Skywalker that happened in the movie with him. Take away also the fact that he was only brought in because, again, they needed a threat that was threatening, and they clearly didn't have any of that with Kylo or Snoke, because they killed him off. But his return is the worst crime in the movie because it undoes the sacrifice of Anakin.
Yeah, it does.
The whole point.
Like, the whole point of, like, when Darth Vader kind of switches back to Anakin, when he kills the Emperor, that whole thing is just like, oh, he's realised what he's done. He's realised he still has love for his son, and he's still Anakin in there. It just took a lot for him to kind of remember, sort of deal. And that was the sacrifice, because he ends up dying afterwards. He sacrifices himself for his son. And then when we find out that the Emperor's still alive, it's just like, oh, that was a waste.
It all rings hollow. Yeah. And this is the big... Again, this is sort of getting into the ending discussion, but it really does sum up the problem with the sequel trilogy, is that they didn't understand what made Star Wars so important. The story of family... And with Anakin, his story is so important because he is the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
And yet to have the sequel trilogy not have Darth Vader in it in any way possible that ties into the ending of Palpatine, because he was going to need to be in this. He needed to be in this movie if they were to bring back the Emperor regardless. He needed to have some involvement, and they don't. They just have a throwaway Force voice scene with him. And granted, that was nice, but that was it.
It was a nice little moment, like, but it didn't... Again, it was a bit clasping at straws there. I mean, if we wanted a threatening sort of presence, at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to the Knights of Ren, which have been teased throughout like the last two movies, and we're just like, oh, this could be threatening. No, they had amazing weapons. Their armor looked cool. They looked threatening and scary, but they weren't. They were just.
They didn't do anything.
They were just like prize soldiers. Like,
They were the
had
equivalent.
so much. They could have done so much. They could have been more like a threatening presence to Poe and Finn and Chewie, and try and like be more of their sort of enemy, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and then if Kylo had kind of turned more to the light side, instead of that really pathetic fight that he had with them just before the end of the movie, I felt like that could have been more. But
Yeah, they just come out of nowhere because they're now on the Emperor's side apparently.
Yeah.
They know Kylo's turned to the light now.
no, it didn't make sense, because you saw like snippets of them when like they planet jumped like to further the plot. So when C-3PO wasn't allowed to translate that Sith text, which kind of annoyed me. I felt like that was unnecessary. Like, they had to go to an entirely different planet just to change C-3PO's memory.
Yeah, just so they can get a forceful "you're my friends," even though we've never had a scene together beforehand,
it
and we've
just-
spent the entire movie being mean to you.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're my friends.
That didn't really make sense. But because you saw them then, and they were kind of like, oh, they might get caught. Let's see how this turns out. No, they just arrived too late. Sort
Yeah,
of.
they could have helped Kylo fight Rey at that scene.
Yeah, they could have been so good, but again, like all the characters we've been talking about, just wasted potential.
Yeah, again, they're set up in Force Awakens to be Kylo's henchmen essentially, and it's sort of implied maybe in Last Jedi that they might be members of Luke's students who defected from his order along with Kylo afterwards.
Yeah.
So there's endless story potential you could have explored with that. And digging a bit more deeper into the wound here, in the original script for Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates, the original episode 9, they had more prominence. They had a bit more. They actually had names.
Yeah.
And one of them even had the Darksaber at one point, I think. And they actually duel Rey in a very brutal fight.
That could have been great, and Rey could have lost a limb.
Yeah, and in going a bit more into that, Rey actually loses her eyesight in the Duel of Fate script. So goddamn, thank you for that, Colin Trevorrow. It's just a shame you didn't get to fucking make the movie.
I mean, that could have been interesting, because there were like Force users who couldn't see, but they kind of saw with the Force. And like that was their whole like thing. They could see and like sense with the Force, and they were still like combat ready. But it was more relying on, again, like as we said earlier, she could have relied on the Force more. She could have been blind, but she could have relied on the Force and become powerful that way.
Yeah, what you said earlier, that would have worked. Yeah. It actually would have been quite fitting.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, it's again endless amounts of wasted potential. And back to Rise of Skywalker, the entire movie just feels like one scene after another, one set piece after another. It doesn't take time to breathe.
No, it's
my biggest gripe with it.
It's very busy. If that's it's a busy movie, and you kind of have to watch it a couple of times to properly understand what's going on, and even then you're a bit confused.
And it doesn't help that there's endless MacGuffins that you have to follow throughout the movie.
Yep.
The convenient points are so annoying to watch. The fact that they crash into a sink pit that conveniently leads them to the Sith dagger.
Yeah.
And when they crash the Falcon on the Endor moon, they're able to pinpoint the exact spot where they need to be. they're at the spot they need to be to open the dagger and find the right place to get into the Empire's Death Star.
Plot convenience.
Plot convenience after plot convenience. It's just, come on.
It got a bit unnecessary after a while. Especially with the Sith dagger, I thought that could have been more interesting, but... And then that followed with the Force healing, which will forever annoy me, but...
Yeah, I mean, again, as you said before, it opens up a whole can of worms for why this wasn't established in the earlier films, or why it wasn't utilised at all. And people will probably say, oh, it was an ancient Jedi power, that's why she has the books and she learnt it. Fair enough. But again, it's according to the lore of the movie, only a year has passed by the events of Last Jedi. So, by this own story's admission, Rey, who believed the Force was a myth apparently, and Luke Skywalker was a myth, because apparently the universe forgot about Jedi again. She's been able to learn all this and master this very ancient and lost Jedi skill in just about a year, and by like maybe a few days at least.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was like an ancient Jedi sort of power, like back in the Clone Wars, they had the Jedi libraries. They had tons and tons of like tomes and texts and holocrons on different Sith and Jedi powers. Why wasn't that used? Like, Qui-Gon could have been saved. We could have had more Qui-Gon, but no. So her being able to force heal it to such a capacity seems like such, again, an overpowered sort of thing for her, because she can do anything now. She just needs to put a little bit of her life force into them and they're up and running again.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for them to do episode 9 to 12 and she beats everyone with a single rip of her wrist.
Oh no. Please don't jinx it. Apparently they're moving away from the Skywalker family now though, so
yeah.
I've heard rumours, some which I don't like, which is mostly an all-female cast, which I don't understand.
Yeah, hope. I will say this though, there's hope for that because again, diving into behind-the-scenes stuff, apparently that was all on Kathleen Kennedy. She intentionally leaked that news to try and garner interest in that project.
Oh.
But apparently Bob Iger, who's clearly aware of the backlash and the disconnect with the fans and the franchise, he got so angry at her. Apparently, again, this is all rumor at the moment. Apparently, he got so angry at her, he demoted her in some level of her power.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she was. I remember hearing about that. I got really.
Oh no, this. Yeah, I was back then. That was like 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, no, I remember.
This is recent.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not by the recent news then?
No, what happened in the recent news? Oh boy, I'm
that-
not up to date.
That's okay. But yeah, the recent news was that the rumor is that he's angry at her for leaking that news about the female-led series. Because they, again, it's something that they weren't. Apparently, again, according to the rumor, she concocted the plan with her own team of writers without consulting Bob Iger. So it wasn't something that they were aware of until she announced it. So, and the idea was that if it was announced and people liked it, they would have to go forward with the project. But again, considering the current state of Star Wars, it's likely just made the fan base more frustrated with you're continuing to push this agenda even though you didn't do it right with the films, the three films that you
right
had.
The first time. What makes you think you'll do it right the second time?
Yeah, and add on the fact that Disney's lost a lot of income and money because of this. No wonder Bob Iger was probably angry at it, and allegedly the idea is that he's apparently done something that's taken away more of her power, and some people say she might be out of the door by the end of 2020.
You know, I wouldn't be sad about that if she was. So
me neither. Honestly, I honestly don't know what's going to happen behind the scenes. I just hope that. I mean, I do feel sorry for Kathleen Kennedy in a way, because you can understand where she's coming from a certain point of view. And in this growing age, we all do want good change. Yeah. But this is not how they should have done it.
It's not and forcing it. She's trying to force it, and you're not meant to force stuff like that because it just makes people hate it.
Yeah, change takes time. That's the whole point. And you can't push your ideology and your hopes and passions to other people. You need to make them understand it. And the best way to do that from a storytelling point of view, especially from a film point of view, is to show the progression in the characters, in the story. You can't just make a character an idol and say she's an idol, because people aren't going to believe that. Luke Skywalker is an idol because we saw his journey. Rey is not an idol. She's a character idea that is trying to be an idol and just failing. But yeah, sorry, that detour aside. But yeah, so yeah, there's other stuff I don't like about Rise of Skywalker. Really, it's just, again, the pointless lack of character moments. The fact that we see Lando, and thankfully they don't kill him off.
Yeah,
but they don't make him do much.
He's not overused, which is nice. Yeah. No, which is good. I think not using him much was a good idea. It was nice seeing him and the fact he was still alive, but I felt like if they overused him, it might have spoiled him a bit.
In a way, I guess. Yeah, it's just. I mean, they cut us entire subplot with him about his daughter, and then we find out in the end of the movie that she might whatever the stormtrooper name who was I don't know. I'm at this point. My throat's getting a bit sore,
It's
but
fine.
but there's this. I think there's stuff you could have done with him in the sequel trilogy. In regards to just Rise of Skywalker, I'm sort of okay with it, but I do still feel like again you should have done more, and he's just there for just nostalgia purposes.
Yeah, I mean, The Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion, was better than The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I do agree. I said this in an earlier video, but I definitely left Rise of Skywalker feeling a bit more chilled, for the lack of a better word. I still didn't like it, because I actually remember talking to Lynn about it afterwards, and I remember fuming about, oh, they brought back the bloody Emperor, they made Rey more powerful than ever, they got them killed off Kylo and made her kiss, but I did enjoy some aspects of it, at least.
Fan service
And
of Rey and Kylo kissing.
yeah, that they really shot themselves in that. The fact that you also had to try and backtrack in interviews and say, "Oh no, it wasn't a romantic kiss; it was a platonic kiss because they cared about each other so much."
Kiss someone like I don't blame her for wanting to kiss Adam Driver, but that's like a whole different level.
Yeah, he's a handsome guy, but god damn it, I'm not going to be kissing the guy who killed millions and tried to kill me multiple times.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's just yeah. I think, and just another gripe: the entire movie takes place in the span of 16 hours.
Yeah.
And with all the planets that they jump to, no.
See,
They
logically. Actually, speaking of that, because I do remember in The Last Jedi, at the beginning, this is something that annoyed me. I mean, it's not really important, but if you like Star Wars ships, then it is. TIE fighters can't hyperjump. But they did in the beginning of The Last Jedi. Now, TIE fighters are meant to just be assault ships completely. They're too small to do hyper jumps, and they're not built for that because they look kind of flimsy if you think about it. In The Last Jedi, they had 3 or 4 TIE fighters after the Falcon. They all were able to hyper jump. I just didn't. That was just one little thing that is probably completely insignificant to everyone else, but it really irked me because ships like that are not designed to hyperjump.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to add to that. It's just okay. It's the small details that do make a big impact sometimes, especially when you know the world and you know the lore. Again, going back to breaking the 16-hour mark. This is Game of Thrones level of we don't give a shit about the time span of the world.
Yeah, no, it's not like it's going to take at least a day or two to get to one planet, either with hyper jumps or a good few hours to get to another one. It just 16 hours where? What timeline?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, and all for the sake of we need to build tension. We only have 16 hours.
We only have
okay. We're dead then. It's going to take us a week to get to this planet.
Oh, they could have just done it a little bit more realistically, and it might have made it a little better. But I mean, because you also have to. This is going super, picky. But you could have also had to think about all planets have different rotations, so time works differently on each planet. Because they're all a certain distance away from the sun, and then they're all rotating and orbiting the sun at different points. So you could have factored that in. You could spend an hour on, I don't know, Exegol, and it could be 5 hours somewhere else. So I don't know. That might be, a little too nitpicky, but at the same time, it's just
Yeah, just... Yeah, I do agree. there's multiple problems with The Rise of Skywalker just alone as a movie.
all
And it's
three
just...
movies.
And yeah, and I guess giving the final close off, I just feel like for Rise of Skywalker, it's sort of in a similar vein to Force Awakens. It's an okay-ish standalone sort of space adventure movie. You can enjoy it if you didn't watch the previous films and you kind of went in thinking, oh, this is just a ragtag group of people trying to save the world or the universe in this place. In this case, you can maybe enjoy it and take away it was a fun ride. But
Yeah.
as the final film in the sequel trilogy, the final film in the fucking Skywalker saga, 30 years in the making, it was such a bloody disappointment. And that's pretty much how I would sum up the sequel trilogy.
I mean, how much disappointment did you feel when Rey was asked about what her name was and she said she was Rey Skywalker? Because that disappointment I felt for like the last two movies, or like the whole trilogy on a whole. When she answered that, I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, again, you took Luke's lightsaber, you took Luke's X-wing, now you took his name.
You're not a
his home.
Skywalker. If you were gonna be a Palpatine, you were gonna be a proud Palpatine.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not like that woman knew who the Emperor was at some point. I doubt she even knew his name. She could have just been like Rey Palpatine. That just sounds okay.
Yeah.
But no, she took Skywalker instead.
Yeah, so I guess wrapping up as a whole, what are your thoughts overall? And I know we've sort of already kind of established it already, but I guess for a close-off, what are your thoughts on it overall?
I mean, as standalone movies, they're okay. Like, if I completely disconnect what I know about Star Wars, like, I can enjoy them to an extent apart from The Last Jedi. That just hits differently. But I mean, The Force Awakens was a strong start. It was okay, and then it got a bit disappointing around The Last Jedi. And then The Rise of Skywalker kind of made up for that because they were trying to patch up what had happened in The Last Jedi. So, overall, I can say they're okay. Ish. But there are a lot of things wrong with them, and it does make them unenjoyable to watch. Like, I can't watch The Last Jedi anymore. Like, I've watched it 3 times. I can't watch it anymore. It just hurts.
I've only watched it twice. And that was the first viewing, and the leading up to this review, the preparation reviewing.
I can't watch it anymore. It just doesn't. It's not an enjoyable movie to me. It just feels really ridiculous. But I mean, overall, the characters are okay. The droids, as usual, are the best characters. Like R2-D2, C-3PO, BB-8. They are my favorite characters. But there is a lot of wasted potential that could have, there were so many characters that they could have made into really strong characters, but they didn't because they just couldn't be bothered, and they kind of just had throwaway characters which they teased and they used a bit, and then just threw away like nothing, which people, some people enjoyed those characters, like Phasma. Phasma's, in my opinion, was a good character till they killed her off like twice. So
take away the fact that Rose had such a pointless subplot in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
You could have utilised her well. You could have made her a bit more prominent and maybe more of an interesting character in Rise of Skywalker, but they didn't. And same thing with Phasma, as you said. I think had they done the rivalry thing more, had Finn and her, if they dueled in Force Awakens, they could have set her up as a very threatening character, and they could have had her. Not she's intimidating, but they could have established her skills, and she should have beaten Finn. Come episode 8, they could have had a duel again, and he would have gone a bit better, but he still would have lost. But he was the aid of his friends, in this case maybe Rose, who could have helped him win the fight maybe. And then you get to episode 9, it's the big clash. You can finally have them duel, and he will win against her. And you could, while this is all happening, you could have done some great stuff exploring her character, her motivation, why she does what she does, why she thinks the way she is, and why she thinks she's on the right. Heck, if you wanted to, you could have maybe gone away where Finn tries to convince her to join their side, and she could have, and then situations happen where she gets killed. I don't know. There's some interesting stuff and directions you could have done with this trilogy overall. And I apologise, my dog's barking, so I don't know if you've got that in the audio.
No, I did. It's fine. Wasted potential, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that's the big summary of the sequel trilogy. It's a waste of potential. And that's what I think hits home and hurts home the worst about it. Because this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, really. This was going to be the only time we could have gotten Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Luke Skywalker, and Harrison Ford together again. Because Harrison clearly didn't want to do anything after 7. Mark Hamill loves the role. And Carrie Fisher sadly passed away in 2016. So they can't do this again. They lost the chance. So, yeah. we can only just hope for the future, really. And in a way, I still love Star Wars. I still hold it close to my heart because I have a history with it, and I will always try and look for the good in it, as was expected from Star Wars. It was about finding hope, keeping up hope alive, and I will continue to try that as a fan, not as a diehard fan, but as a genuine, just casual fan.
I still always love Star Wars. Like, the movies didn't make me hate Star Wars. Like, I still play my Star Wars games, and I still geek over Star Wars a lot. Like, I do cosplay now as well. So, like, the movies didn't make me hate Star Wars. It was more like the disappointment that the directors and the screenwriters and everything like that, they kind of expected us to enjoy everything that they kind of shoved down our throats, because that is what it felt like. And then we were reprimanded for our views and our opinions on it, and it was just a bit like, eh.
Yeah, so all we can do is just hope and see what the future brings. But hey,
A new hope, yeah.
yeah. But I can say this though: we'll always have the original films. We'll always have the spirit of Star Wars with us, and who knows? There's people out there who do definitely understand what's happened, why we aren't happy. And there are people, as hard as it is to believe sometimes, there are people out there who are trying to make it work, to make it be good again, to fix it, essentially. So my heart goes out to everyone who's trying to make that happen, even though people will probably just only view you as the money guys, or the creative guys who were just listening to the overlords Disney or Lucasfilm. Those people who are trying to tell a good story, thank you. And here's to hope that one day we will get to see that story realised in a big blockbuster Star Wars film, or TV series, or so on.
We can hope.
Yeah, there will always be hope. So, well, that's the Great Out podcast today, and yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and I'd especially like to thank you, Hawk. You've been a lot of fun talking today. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking with you today.
Thank you. It's been nice being here.
Yeah, and I'd also like to take this moment to thank everyone as well, because believe it or not, when this episode goes up, this will actually be the second anniversary of the channel.
Oh wow!
Yeah, bet you didn't know that was happening.
No, that's kind of special now.
Well, thank you in that case double for being part of this occasion. So,
thank you for having me.
Right back at you. So, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you had a good time, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. God damn it, Disney! That was one fucking stupid decision there. Okay, sorry, just give me a sec. I just need to quickly... We'll be back in a sec if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks. Sorry about that. My brother was blowing his headphones quite loud.
That's fine.
Sorry?
Did
Did you say something?
There?
You did, yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear half of what you said.
Okay, sorry.